Okay, good morning everyone. You're very welcome to today's webinar, Auto Enrolment and Minimum Contribution Increases, which is known as phasing. We've just completed a sound check there 5 minutes ago with people who logged on early, so thankfully there's no issues today. Okay, here's my mic scan. Here we are. To introduce myself, I'm Karen Bennett. I'm the Marketing Manager here at BrightPay. Today's webinar has been designed to give you an insight into upcoming changes to the minimum contribution rates for both employers and employees. There will be a questions and answers section at the end of today's webinar. So if you do have any questions, if you could type them into your chat bar or your question bar there on your control panel, and we'll get through as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar. Today's webinar is being recorded. We will automatically send you a copy of the recording along with the slides in a follow-up email. There is also a short survey after today's webinar, and we'd ask that you take 1 minute to fill it out in order for us to improve our webinars going forward. Now, just to note, previous feedback from our survey said that I did speak very fast, so I'm going to try and slow it down a wee bit today. So here is our agenda for today's webinar. An overview of phasing. Who does phasing apply to? Are employers ready for the contribution increases? Informing staff about the increases. How will phasing affect new employers? We'll take a quick look at implementing the increases in BrightPay, and we'll also have an introduction to BrightPay Connect, our new add-on. So first up, we have an overview of phasing. By law, the minimum contribution rates for automatic enrolment are set to increase within the next 12 months. There are 2 stages to the increase in minimum contributions, which have been described as phasing. The first increase will take place this coming April, and the second increase in April 2019. On the 6th of April 2018, the total minimum contribution will increase from 2% to 5%. Employers will need to contribute a minimum of 2%, and employees will need to contribute the remaining 3%. Minimum contributions will undergo further increases on the 6th of April 2019, with the total minimum contribution rate increasing to 8%, representing a 3% employer and 5% employee contribution. It is an employer's responsibility to make sure they are prepared for the new contribution levels. The employer and the employee can choose to contribute a higher amount to the pension scheme if they wish. If an employer chooses to pay more than the employer minimum but less than the total minimum amount, then the employee must make up the difference. If an employer wishes, they can also decide to pay the total minimum contribution rate, which is 5% from April 2018 and 8% from April 2019. In these cases, the employee does not have to pay any contributions unless the rules of the pension scheme say otherwise. In certain cases where the employee and the employer are contributing above the current minimum requirement to the workplace pension scheme, an increase in contributions will not be required if the total contribution is above the increased minimum contribution rate. If an employer is making pension contributions as part of a salary sacrifice agreement, it is important to note that their employee's contract of employment may need to be reviewed and amended as a result of phasing. For example, consider an employee whose current contract of employment states that they will sacrifice 1% of their salary in return for the employer to pay the equivalent amount into the pension scheme along with the 1% employer contribution. How will the new April 2018 minimum requirement now be met? So it's one thing to take note of. So who does phasing apply to? The pensions regulator is sending letters to all employers informing them about the increases happening this April. Phasing will apply to all employers who have staff enrolled into a workplace pension scheme. For employers who don't have staff enrolled, then they do not have to take any further action. However, to note, all employers must assess their employees on an ongoing basis to see if any of their staff become eligible for automatic enrolment. Where an employee does become eligible, then the employee must process the minimum contributions that are applicable at that current time period. Phasing also applies to new employers, whereby an employer reaches their auto-enrolment duty start date on or after the 6th of April 2018, they will be immediately required to comply and implement the total minimum 5% contribution rate. Equally, new employers who reach their duty start date on or after the 6th of April 2019 will need to comply with the total minimum 8% contribution rate. Are employers ready for the contribution increases? Employers need to make sure they understand the upcoming contribution increases and how the changes will apply to them and their staff. It will be important for employers to plan ahead and be ready for the increases from April 2018 and April 2019. The pensions regulator is advising employers to check with their current payroll software provider to ensure it will handle and calculate the increased contribution amounts. Be aware that HMRC's basic PAYE tools does not cater for the needs of automatic enrolment calculations. Employers who use basic tools continue to be at a high risk of receiving a fine for non-compliance, as their assessment and contribution calculations must be manually calculated. Ensuring the correct contributions are deducted. Employers must know when and how much to deduct when both sets of increases come into effect. Typically, any good software will automatically prompt you when the increases happen in real time. So just take steps to ensure that the increases have been put in place correctly, particularly for the first payroll run. It is important to note that the increased contributions are required to be processed on the first pay date after the 6th of April. Ensuring the pension scheme is qualifying. Pension providers have already begun to take steps to allow for the increases. If your current scheme doesn't support the increased contributions, you need to speak to your pension provider to allow for the new increased rates. So informing staff about the increases. Some pension providers have already begun to communicate the increases to their customers and to their members. It would be a good idea to touch base with the current workplace pension provider to find out what kind of support they are offering to inform staff about the increases, as not all pension providers are doing so. Unlike the initial assessment and enrolment at the staging date or duty start date, it is not a mandatory requirement to inform or write to staff about the increases in minimum contributions. However, it would be considered best practice to clearly communicate with employees to let them know before the increases take place. This will help minimize confusion and reduce queries. Some employees may even decide to opt out of the workplace pension scheme due to the increased financial cost. The pensions regulator has a sample letter template available to employers to give to staff, which should help employees understand the upcoming changes. This letter is available to download in the handout section on your control panel, and we will also include it in the follow-up email after today's webinar. So implementing the increases in BrightPay. So your payroll software should really easily and automatically calculate the phased increases for you. It's important that you check with your chosen pension scheme and payroll software can support the phased minimum increase rates. If you are an accountant looking after auto-enrolment for your clients, it will be your responsibility to make sure that the correct amount of pension contributions are being deducted and to inform your clients about these increases. If your payroll provider is not prepared for the increases, the correct amount may not be paid to the workplace pension scheme on time. Any delay in implementing the minimum contribution rates would result in non-compliance and may result in fines if not rectified. BrightPay can automate and calculate the increases for you. We are joined today by Victoria Clark, our support manager. So Vicky will now take you through a quick look at how BrightPay will cater for these increases in minimum contributions. So thank you, Vicky.
Many thanks, Karen. Good morning, everybody. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I just want to show you, I suppose, 3 before and after scenarios with regard to phasing and how BrightPay is going to help you implement the phase 2 rates when they kick in from the 6th of April. So just on screen here, I have my final pay period of the 17-18 tax year updated, so month 12, so that is all finalised. You'll see here, if I just click into Benedict Taylor, my first employee here, in this scenario, he has the current minimum rates in operation, so 1% and 1%. Okay, so the standard minimum rates there. My next employee, as at the final pay period of 17-18, and this is an example of an employee who has above the minimum in operation, so 2% employee contribution, 2% employer. And then Hayley here, she is an example of somebody who has, again, above the current minimum phased rate, so 5% employee contribution and 5% employer contribution. Okay, so as usual, when we release the new tax year version, so when we release BrightPay 18-19, as usual, there will be the import option to bring all your information across from BrightPay 17-18. And with regard to phasing then, okay, so now I'm just showing you a print screen from the new 18-19 software. Excuse me. So this is my month 1 payroll preview. Let's take Benedict Taylor here. So he was the employee who had 1% and 1% in operation at the end of the 17-18 tax year. And you can see here what BrightPay is going to do for you in this scenario. So we will automatically uplift those minimum rates to the new phase 2 rates of 3% employee and 2% employee. You can see that that will be done automatically for you. You will have nothing to do there. Okay. Casper then, at the end of 17-18, he had 2% and 2% in operation. He was above the minimum in the 17-18 tax year. You'll now see that he's not meeting the minimum requirements. So it's brought in the 2% and 2%. It's carried that over into the brand new tax year version for you, but that you are now getting the prompt and the flag here to tell you that the pension contributions for this employee are now below the required minimum level, okay, and that you now have an action to perform. So in this scenario, we're not going to automatically uplift anything for you. We're going to leave it to the user to, implement the change required. And to do that, you're going to click on the Fix button here. And this will give you a number of options available. So to either apply the minimum employee and employer contribution rates, to increase the employer contribution rate only, to top up, etc. So you as the payroll operator will choose the option most applicable. Of course, we don't want to make an assumption and assume that you want to increase the employee contribution. It could be that the employer has agreed to, between the employee and the employee to meet the 5% minimum overall. So we're not making an assumption. That's why we're getting you to choose which option is to apply here. So if I choose to apply minimum employee contribution, you'll see here that this will change to 3% and 2% for you there. Okay. Our third employee was Hayley, and she had 5% and 5% in operation at the end of the 17-18 tax year. You'll see here that there is nothing to do for her. She is above the new minimum now, so she, there's no flags for her, so you can continue to maintain that 5% and 5% contribution rate as required. Okay. I just want to show you another employee here, because you might be thinking, okay, Vicky's just shown us here where percentages are in operation, and you could have employees who have fixed amounts for their contributions each pay period. Again, BrightPay will import those fixed amounts into the new tax year for you, but in the background, it is calculating what the equivalent percentage is of those fixed amounts for you. And again, you can see this employee here, Jemima, the £40 and £30 now, based on the gross pay and my earnings basis that I have in operation, she's not meeting the minimum. Okay, so again, you do have that fix option here, which you must complete. And again, you can choose the option here. When you select the option there, it will actually first of all convert the fixed amounts to the percentages, so 3%, 2%, for example. You can then override that then specifically with the equivalent fixed amounts that you want to be in operation there. So you can see here that I'm maintaining my £40 contribution as before, but the employer's contribution has increased in my example here. Okay. So if I just finalize this pay period here, okay, and move into the next pay period, so month 2 of my 18-19 tax year, you'll see that any changes that you do implement will carry forward automatically for you. So you can see it's holding on to Benedict's 3% and 2% there, Casper as well. Okay, so that's just a quick insight as to what's to come in BrightPay 18-19. I'll just pass you back to Karen now.
Thanks, Vicky. That was very useful. You can see that it's fairly seamless there in BrightPay. You don't really need to do anything, and it'll prompt you if there is any action that needs to be taken. Before we go to the questions and answer section, we'd also like just to take a few minutes to show you our new add-on, BrightPay Connect, and how it works. So I won't keep you too much longer, and then we'll take our questions and answers. So BrightPay Connect is a handy tool to help communication between accountants, employers and employees. It works along BrightPay payroll that it still sits on your desktop. Payroll information is stored in the cloud and can be assessed online, but the payroll itself must be processed on the existing BrightPay desktop application. So the online functionality allows online access anywhere, anytime for accountants, employers and their employees. BrightPay Connect automatically synchronizes and backs up data to the cloud, protecting against ransomware and cyber attacks. It will automatically back up a payroll file every 15 minutes when open, and again when the payroll file is closed down. Okay. A chronological history of backups will also be maintained, which can be restored at any time. Accountants can give online access to clients' payroll information via the employer dashboard. Employers can log online to their dashboard at any time to see up-to-date payroll information, where they will see notifications, employer details, HMRC amounts and any upcoming events. The online employer portal allows access to all employees' payslips. Your saved reports that are set up in BrightPay are automatically available on your dashboard. A full overview of all employee leave, amounts due to HMRC, and employee documents that have been uploaded, such as your employee contracts or company newsletters. The employee self-service can access, employees can access their personal self-service online portal, which is password protected. They can view and download current and historic payslips, P60s and P45. So I'll just click on a payslip here. Payslips are automatically added to the employee self-service portal each pay period, which eliminates the need to print or email payslips. An email is also automatically sent to employees, notifying them that their payslip is available. The password-protected employee online portal will enable employees to easily submit holiday requests, where they can also view their leave taken and leave remaining. So HR and annual leave management. Employers can view all past and upcoming leave in the BrightPay Connect company-wide calendar, including any sick leave, holiday leave and maternity leave. Once an employee requests leave on the self-service portal, the employer will see a notification on their dashboard. Employers can authorize leave requests with changes automatically flowing back to the payroll. So let's approve something here. And we'll go back over to, so you can see that notification has disappeared off the notifications dashboard. You can upload HR documents, as I said earlier, including contracts and handbooks or any other company information. So in this example, the employer uploaded letters to the employees informing them about the upcoming contribution increases. So that's it. That's a quick look at BrightPay Connect. Just to let you know, we do run more in-depth demos of both BrightPay and BrightPay Connect almost every day. The demos are free to attend and last approximately 20 minutes, so do let us know if you'd like to book a demo. Before I finish up, I'd like to say that BrightPay's standard license costs £99 plus VAT per tax year, and our Bureau license costs $299 plus VAT per tax year. Both of these licenses include free support and email support, have full functionality, including auto-enrolment, CIS, a payroll journal export to accounting packages, the ability to batch send RTI submissions, and so much more. So as I said, if you want an online demo, do let us know. It only takes 20 minutes. So I would encourage you to sign up to our newsletter if you'd like to hear more information about our webinars. GDPR is changing how we communicate with you, and as a result, after May 2018, we will no longer be able to email you about webinar events, special offers or other news without you subscribing to our newsletter. So don't miss up and don't miss out and sign up to the BrightPay newsletter today, and you can unsubscribe at any time. So we're now going to take our questions and answers. I'll just leave up our upcoming webinars there so you could take a note of them, and they're available on our website to register. We will endeavour to get through as many questions as possible, and if you do have if we do not get to your particular question, we will get back to you separately. So for our Q&A session, we'll have myself and Vicky, and just bear with us, I suppose, as we try to read the questions and answer them at the same time. Okay. I'll just go up to the top here. There's a good few questions coming through, which is great.
Okay, so we start with that one, Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
so if an employer doesn't wish to pay the increased rate, is there only option to opt out if they aren't able to continue at the current 1% if they wish, unless, I suppose, the employer will make up the difference?
Okay, can I take that one?
Yeah, please.
I had a feeling this question would come in actually. So basically where an employee is unable to meet the new increased rate, or they don't want to, what happened last week, we did actually meet with the pensions regulator last week, and their advice is that that employee really needs to be referred back to the pension provider whose scheme they are in. Whether, I suppose it's informally known as opting down really, and basically every pension provider will have their own rules regarding this, whether they're going to allow people to pay under the minimum requirements or not. Pension schemes such as Nest have refused. They're not going to allow that to happen. So in that case, you know, the only option will be for the employee to come out of the scheme. Other pensions providers are thinking about it. Some allow it already. So with that, you know, the TPR's advice is that the employer shouldn't really get into the discussion with them about what their options are, but just to say, look, please contact the pension provider in that instance. BrightPay does facilitate kind of allowing, I suppose, under the minimum to go through. You will continue to get the warnings that you're not meeting the minimums. But we, you know, from a software angle, we do, you know, we do allow that to happen. So I hope that helps there.
Yeah, I suppose it'll just be interesting to see how employees react to the increases, and hopefully it'll be fairly seamless for both the employer and the employee. Okay, so can you have different colour codes for different employees?
Okay.
I suppose that's just on the payroll itself.
Yeah, at the moment, no, it's not something that we do. I suppose where there are actions for you to perform, we use kind of the series of flags and the yellow alerts, but I can certainly mention it to the developers there. Okay,
now I'm not sure if I understand this question, but I'll just ask it anyway. So can you Can you confirm that with BrightPay Connect you can only update the payroll from one PC?
Okay, it just depends where I suppose the way BrightPay works, that you install the software on your own individual PC, so on the C drive, so the local drive of the PC. You then choose where to store your employer data file. So that can be a server, a cloud environment, something like that. So if you're in a bureau environment, say there's 5 users and everybody has the BrightPay on their machine, certainly then it's whoever's in it, the 5 of you would be able to access and also to synchronize to connect for that employer file, because the employer file is running from the server. You've only got one setup of that, and that's the most important part.
Okay. How does BrightPay Connect compare to Orange HRM? Now, I suppose I'm not too familiar with Orange HRM. Like BrightPay Connect it's quite a simple product. There's not. It does your automatic backup, backs up all of your information. Employers have access to all of their payroll reports. Employees access their pay slips and can request holiday leave, and you can upload your contracts. I'm not too sure about the price point of Orange HRM, but BrightPay Connect it's just £49. So per license, per employer license, so there might be a difference there on the price point, but actually it's something that I'll do some market research on and have a look at Orange HRM to see what they're offering. Okay, so the next question. I have bought 1819 BrightPay and I've got my license key. When can I actually download the new version?
Okay, so we have penciled in the 21st of March, so it's a Wednesday. Wednesday the 21st of March is when I think officially we'll be releasing. If you're using the Mac version, it will be the Friday of that week, so the 23rd of March is penciled in for that release date.
Okay, so we pay staff weekly. So would our first increased pension rates start on the 6th of April? 6th of April or the 13th of April.
Okay, so the rule to follow is it be your first pay date after the 6th of April. Okay, so just always bear that in mind.
Is there anywhere in BrightPay to generate a notification letter of the increases? I suppose that's to the employees.
Yeah, so it's not something we have done as yet. We are aware that, some pension providers are choosing to write to members. Certainly, I think the majority of them, I think all of them, hopefully have decided to write to employers anyway. And then obviously they're choosing whether to write to members as well. So we're not sure at the moment. I don't think we've made a final decision whether we're going to be doing a letter in the 1819 software. However, on the Pensions Regulators website, they have a template letter. So that can always be used.
Yeah, we'll send you the link to that after today's webinar. I suppose it's not mandatory, so we don't want to really, confuse people to thinking that it is mandatory, but if you send those letters to employees, it would be best practice to let them know about the increases. So next one, is this compulsory for all employers?
The phasing, is it, I assume? Yeah. It would be where you have employees in auto-enrolment schemes and they match the criteria, yes, certainly the phased rates do kick in there.
Okay, no, sorry, I'm just reading the questions as we're going through. So we currently have our payroll outsourced and they do our pensions. We are looking to take this in-house as of the new tax year. Are we able to opt everyone in now, or do we have to wait until we take over? I suppose that means to continue the enrollment.
Yeah, I suppose it would be something between yourself and your outsourced payroll provider. What some people do, they kind of get a head start, so they may decide now to actually kind of get their employees set up and maybe do a few parallel runs just to make sure that at the start of the new tax year, all their employee data is in and it's working as they need it to be. But either or, really. I'm assuming that, the employees are already in the pension, so it'd just be kind of setting the employees up on, in-house, when you get the software and making sure you replicate the exact same scenarios.
Okay, thanks Vicky. Does BrightPay Connect actually calculate the holiday entitlement, or does it just record the leave taken? So yeah, there on the demo, you could see the company-wide, or when you're an employee, you can see your leave that you've taken, and then down at the bottom you can see a record of leave taken and leave remaining. And I suppose if you're in the process of your leave being approved, once the leave is approved, that will be updated in Connect.
I think it's worth bearing in mind that, everything, the calculation of holidays taking place in the software itself, you're still doing your payroll processing and everything in the software. It's then syncing up to Connect. So the calculation will be at the software level.
Okay. Are we allowed to send your recordings and slides to our clients or place it on our website? Yes, absolutely. The more people and the more of your clients understand about phasing, the better for us. So absolutely, like we're hoping to run more webinars throughout the year. So if you wanted to find out about them and send them on to your clients, just sign up to our newsletter, and then you can automatically just send that link on to your clients where they can register themselves. Okay, if employees decide, I think you kind of answered this already, but we'll just go through it. I'll just read out this question. If employees decide they would like to opt down and their current, provider doesn't allow it, can they change schemes to go with a different provider who does allow it? I don't think it's up to the employee.
No, I mean, it's employer choice. I would be, that would be my thinking, that the employer is choosing the pension scheme to go, the pension provider to go with. If the employee can't match the minimum, then they would have to just cease. And then obviously then the employer, if they don't change provider at any point, then they'd then be in the pot then for re-enrolment then at the time the re-enrolment comes around.
Okay, which pension providers doesn't work with BrightPay regarding submitting pension contributions each month?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
We work with 18 of them.
I suppose a list of them is available on our website. If you go to brightpay.co.uk, and then I think it's auto-enrolment pension schemes, it's probably the best way than trying to work the other way.
Yeah.
If one of the schemes isn't supported by BrightPay, you can export a CSV file. You can. And then submit it to the pension provider. Yeah.
But if there's any schemes out there that we don't currently cater for, do just get in contact with us, because sometimes if the demand is there, for us, it's really just about getting the file specifications and contacting these pension providers and working with them. So, they're quite, over the last couple of years, we've certainly increased the number that we've brought in. So we will certainly look at new pension schemes for you.
Okay. So this is an interesting question. I'm not sure. With BrightPay Connect, can you switch off elements not required, i.e. a holiday request, as we already have a system we use for holiday requests?
Yes, you can. For example, if you don't want first of all, the employee self-service portal, you don't need to give access to it. You can just use it as an employer portal. If you are utilising the employee self-service portal, then you can actually switch off the abilities for employees to request annual leave or cancel annual leave. So there's a few options there.
Yeah, I suppose the benefit of the holiday leave option is that it syncs back to the payroll, so you don't have to, if you're using another system, I suppose you'd have to then record that manually in the payroll system, but if it's recorded in Connect, it just automatically syncs up once the employer authorises it. Would that be right, Vicky? Yeah. Okay. Next one, is it possible to show how to push salary sacrifice into the software by amount?
Okay, at the moment, because we're showing print screens today, we don't have the software live just to show you a live example, but we can certainly touch base with you after the webinar. There is actually in the online documentation a help sheet on salary sacrifice, which I can always send on as well.
Yeah, any other questions, I suppose, about the functionality of BrightPay? If you do have any queries, there is, with the employer and the bureau license, there is free phone and email support, and they are very, very good at helping customers. So do just give us a call or send us an email. Is there an upper limit? Now, I'm not too sure about upper limit. Is there an upper limit on employee and employer contributions?
Oh, I have to put my hand up here. I wouldn't know specifically. I do know we recently had, it was Nest, and the submission was failing, and it was because somebody had contributions in higher than 10%.
Okay.
And they had that limit on it, and that was why. So I don't know whether it's something on pension provider level. I really don't know. I wouldn't want to just kind of...
I'd say each pension provider would have their own rules for the upper limit. So
maybe worth checking with them. Yeah.
I'm just checking how we are for time. Okay, just bear with us here as we go through a few more of the questions. So does BrightPay calculate holiday pay taking into overtime, etc.?
It does. There is an option there when you're choosing the annual leave entitlement method calculation that you want BrightPay to perform for each employee, which can be done on an individual level. There is the option to include overtime in that, so that's an option there.
Okay, I think we've covered everything, so just bear with it. If you do have any more questions, do pop them through, because we have a bit of time left there. So just to say again, while we're going through the questions here, we will send on a recording of today's webinar along with the slides in a day or two after we do the recording of it. So if you missed anything or want to look back as a reference, just look out for your emails. And if you are interested in hearing any more about upcoming webinars, please do subscribe to our newsletter. We're running a lot of them about upcoming changes on auto-enrolment, GDPR. I have to say our GDPR webinars are run very, very well. They're run by Laura Murphy, which is our HR guru here in the company. And it is very interesting in terms of what you need to do to comply with GDPR. And then we also have that one there on the 10th of April on employment law overview. So lots of useful information, and they're all completely free.
It's just a question here we missed, actually, Nora, Karen, sorry, because going back through the questions that have come in, and it's quite an interesting one, actually. It is a question that comes into us. So in this example, if we are running a full weekly payroll and the period being covered is the 24th of March to the 14th of April, do we have to split the pension contribution, so 2%, I suppose, up to the 5th of April, and then the 5% from the 5th of April to the end of the period? So basically the pensions regulator have said that they are perfectly fine with you applying the new phased rates for any pay date that falls after the 6th of April, regardless of what, I suppose, the period is that you're paying for. They are perfectly fine with that. At the same time, they understand, however, that some employers might want to do the split. I suppose the example they gave us, especially if you've got an awful lot of employees, doing the 2% up to the 5th and then the higher rate after, there's a saving there, So, they're perfectly okay with that as well. From our perspective, what BrightPay won't be doing is facilitating that, though. So it would have to be a manual calculation that's performed by the employer, and then you would have to just pop it in as a fixed amount to accommodate that. So it would be, up to the user to calculate those, that split calculation. But yeah, it's perfectly fine if that's what you want to do. They're happy, for that to happen.
Yeah, I suppose it gets quite complicated if it is split. I was reading about it myself on the pensions regulator, so I know there is information on their website about that. Yeah, good question. Okay, so a few more questions coming through. So is BrightPay Connect included in the price or is it extra? Yeah, so BrightPay Connect is an optional add-on and it's £49 per employer plus VAT per tax year. For accountants or payroll bureaus that are offering Connect to their clients, there is significant discounts the more Connect licenses that you buy. It actually goes up to 75%. So it's an optional add-on that is extra. So how do we subscribe to the newsletter? So in the follow-up email, there will be an option there where you can just click subscribe to the newsletter and then just put in your details, and then you'll hear about any upcoming webinars that we decide to run, or indeed any special offers that we do run from time to time. Okay, another one in here. So using BrightPay Connect, is there any parts of this that the employee can amend, change, for example, overtime hours, worked pension contributions increase, or would that just be down to the employer or the accountant? So that's, I suppose, a good question. Accountants and bureaus would be a bit scared that they wouldn't like to let their clients loose on BrightPay Connect, or the same employers wouldn't like employees to start messing around with any of their figures. So no, you can't adjust any of the information there. It's all of that kind of information is on the desktop payroll, the desktop BrightPay itself, and BrightPay Connect, it's just online access to your payroll information, and the only thing that you can kind of do really, I suppose, in terms of amending anything is approve leave, but you can't actually change any of the payroll information. So if you're an accountant, your client can't change the payroll information, and the employee can't change their salary or anything like that. That would be a good one, increasing your salary or something like that. Okay, so last question here. Is the pension contribution based on contract pay, or does it include overtime, etc.?
Okay, this would be an employer's discretion really when implementing everything, that whether to choose whether it's just to be on kind of the basic pay or to include everything. So it's really at the employer how they want to operate it really there.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we went through that webinar quite quickly. Sometimes we do have a lot of additional questions. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to contact us, or any questions about BrightPay itself or the functionality of Connect. Do contact our support. And as I said, there'll be, I think the survey literally takes 1 minute to fill out, so there will be a survey that will pop up at the end of today's webinar, and it's just an opportunity for us to try and improve the webinars that we roll out to our customers and to our non-customers as well. So thank you everyone for your attendance, and thank you Victoria for your demo and your help with the questions. And thanks to Rachel, who we have working behind the scenes here on the technical side of things. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.